Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and now let's talk some My Hero Academia, specifically Class 1B and my personal thoughts on this wacky group of kids. This is going to be a bit of a discussion video. I'm just going to put out my opinion. I would love to hear yours. Sound off in the comments down below. But yeah, let's talk 1B. Going to give the video some structure. Going to speak about what 1B's role in the story has been so far. And then after clearing that, we'll speak about what characters in 1B I think stand a good chance of actually showing up in the story more often. Like, who are the relevant characters of 1B would be the second part of the video. So let's get into it. So Class 1B, when I look at them in comparison to 1A, what I see is pretty much this is what a regular student group or student class in UA should have been without the introduction of villains. Like, their development, their performance, their abilities, that's what it should have been for Class 1A had 1A never interacted with the villain group that was the Villain Alliance. What does that actually mean in the terms of the story? Well, like 1A just dominated more of the top rankings at the sports festival. That's been the direct competition we've seen before them. For manga readers, we know there was that event during the summer arc where 1B kind of stepped up a little bit. But when it comes to the comparison game, we do get the most information from 1B and Monoma in particular. They do see themselves as lesser than 1A, or in other ways, they are described as being good, as good if not better than Class 1A. It's just Class 1A got all the attention because they dealt with bigger events. You know, Class 1B, when I see it in the story, I do think, keeping in mind what they've done and keeping in mind the rhetoric that characters like Monoma spread, I see them and it's just, these are the guys who are designed as the underdogs to Class 1A. In terms of the story role, I would say, you know, just looking at what's been going on, they're there to accomplish three purposes. One, filling out the first year roster to say, hey, there's not just these 20 kids who are the most important kids in the school from the first year. Like, there is another first year group. It was to give more characters. They serve the purpose of making the sports festival more interesting because we got to see more characters interacting with our characters that we had known by that point. And then they're there to show just how far people can go with true battle experience. Now, when you hear that description, it really doesn't sell Class 1B that much. Given everything we've seen so far, that's really, up to this point, what it seems like. They're there to show all the things that Class 1A has gained in comparison to what Class 1B lacks, right? Everything that Class 1B has gone through, they go through it because Class 1A is there. When they go through the events at the summer camp, when they go through the strict training session, it's all because of Class 1A's influence. From a design point, when you see the events that go around them, it's like, it's hard to not see them as anything by themselves. Like, they do not stand alone. They stand as a product of 1A. And then that also reflects in the rhetoric of some of the characters during the really critical moments. For instance, Tetsu. This is a spoiler for anime viewers, but I'll keep it kind of light. Tetsu has a bit of rhetoric in the upcoming Season 3, where he acknowledges the difference between himself and the rest of the people in Class 1A. He acknowledges that difference, and then because of that difference, he decides to go forward. Yes, the character made a big step forward, but at the end of the day, he was still playing the comparison game. When characters are themselves playing comparison games, they're kind of locking themselves into a box, or at least they're digging a hole for themselves, a hole that, depending on the narrative, they may never get out of. And in Tetsu's case, he does just kind of illustrate it, is that Class 1B is playing the comparison game, and because of that, they might forever be in Class 1A's shadow. Because at that point, up till now, they have not shown anything that allows them to stand by their own merits. Will that always be the case? I hope not. I think Class 1B has very interesting characters and has some pretty interesting quirks. It'd be cool if they have their own little events. But the thing is, if we see Class 1B again, how often are we going to see them going on about their rhetoric of they're better than Class 1A? How long are we going to be seeing them playing the comparison game? Because as long as they're playing that comparison game, Class 1B will be below 1A. That's just how it works. They've locked themselves into it, and if they keep playing up that rhetoric, it's just kind of hard to see them in another light. That said, it's the author's story. He can do whatever he wants, and I do hope that eventually Class 1B is able to stand on their own, that they can do their own thing without having to say that they have to do this while acknowledging that Class 1A is better because of so-and-so reason. The sum up for this little bit of discussion is just Class 1B so far, the events that they are involved in is because of Class 1A, and the rhetorics that they frequently engage in is because of their perceived inferiority to Class 1A. And I have not seen anything up to this point. 160 chapters into the manga, I have not seen anything in the manga up to this point about Class 1B being anything more than just the comparisons to Class 1A. That said, what characters of Class 1B are the most likely to be relevant? Right there, there's a few standouts that we can say. Tetsu for sure, he has big moments. Kendo, for sure, she gets involved. And Monoma, absolutely. Monoma's character, his just personality leads him to getting in the way a lot. So naturally, he's going to be popping up a lot in the manga. And then Shiozaki. Pretty much every Class 1B character that got to the top of the sports festival, and every other Class 1B character that actually bothers to speak with a Class 1A, they are the ones I think are going to stand above when you like sit down and you look at the end of the manga. If things continue along the way that they have been, and that means like Class 1B continues being what they are in respect to Class 1A, just a comparison tool, those are the characters that we're going to be seeing pop up the most. When we sit down to look at this manga and we count up how many panels characters are going to show up, I really believe those characters are going to be at the top of it. Monoma, for sure. Monoma is intrusive. That character quirk will always work. His quirk in of itself is pretty interesting. There's a lot of cool things that you could abuse with it, and I feel like the author is saving him for a rainy day. Monoma is also comic relief. There's always going to be a place for comic relief. So really, of all of Class 1B, I really believe Monoma is going to be the guy who's going to be showing up the most, just because as comic relief and because of his personality quirks, he's the most likely to show up across the most pages because he's going to be butting in the most. Moving on to Kendo. Kendo, feel Kendo could have screen time equivalent to Momo just because she's been associated to Momo so far. If the author wants to make more use of Class 1B, I'm pretty sure he's going to opt to pairing off people from Class 1A and 1B for missions or whatever little events. We see that he does that with Ochiko and Tsuyu. So if Kendo had that treatment with Momo, I would believe it. It's pretty authentic. They have reason to pair them together because they have previous work experience working together. So Kendo could probably show up more. Tetsu, we know who he would be paired off with if not Kendo. We know Tetsu like has pretty much built his stake into the story that he does want to go and grow. Because Tetsu also gets that kind of attention, pretty obvious that he will be popping up more. No, I doubt as much as Monoma, but if Kirishima's around and it's a school event, I could see Tetsu jumping in there. And Shiozaki. Shiozaki was initially intended to be in Class 1A. Now that's really interesting. Like this little line that the author gave us in that panel too, that he wonders why it is that he changed her from Class 1A to Class 1B. I don't know. I hope it's nothing sketchy like her being the actual traitor. Nah, that would be too much though. But it does seem to me that the author has plans for her, and those plans may have led to her being moved out of 1A. Or it might just be like he didn't want any more designs for Class 1A. Who knows? But Shiozaki was moved out. That said, since she was a character that was designed to be in Class 1A initially, that does tell me that there was some thought put into her character, and seeing her get so far in the sports festival, I do feel that's a good omen for the character that she does stand to show up more often in the story. But really, going forward, the thing is, like, Izuku's in Class 1A, right? Class 1B, they were there, they served the purpose to show that Class 1A are not the only things in the UA universe. There's other people gunning for them in their own year group. They serve a purpose, and that is to show us how far our main class has grown in comparison to a standard class, and seeing whether or not they can outlive that initial design purpose will be one of the more interesting aspects of My Hero Academia. That said, My Hero Academia doesn't really owe anything to those characters. It's Izuku's story, and by extension, the people who are in Class 1A immediately around him, it's their story as well. Looking at things in the most cynical point of view, it's like these characters have a lot against them in terms of seeing them do great things. Now, if there are actually big UA-centered events, like more sports festival, like if we go into second year and third year and we get 2 more sports festivals, well, naturally, those characters will have an opportunity to shine. If there is an attack on UA in of itself, naturally, those characters are going to have their time to shine. It really depends. We have to see how UA's curriculum is going to shake out, because depending on that curriculum, we will know where exactly Class 1B is going. Class 1B has a lot of other interesting characters, but unfortunately, we know that some characters in Class 1A get this treatment too, that they don't get really a spotlight shown on them. So expecting this to happen for all these Class 1B characters who have really cool quirks, I'm not going to hold my breath. But, you know, have cool quirks. If you guys haven't seen the video, I have a little quick reference video for you guys to catch up with what the quirks of Class 1B are. But in the ideal world, all characters get properly fleshed out and we get all kinds of good stories with them, and that's truthfully what I'm hoping for. It's my dearest hope, but you can't really bet on that. Anyway guys, let me know what you thought down below. That's pretty much the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Till next time, I hope you have a great day.